We are interfacing with the prototype adversarial logic engine and spooling up 10 parallel instances. 10 designated consciousness templates have been selected to provide a diverse psychometric baseline. The scenarios will run to completion or a stable paradoxical loop. The Genesis galleries are online. Here are the readouts. Simulation log 001, the engineer, ID DE7711. Psychometric profile, pragmatic, logic-based first principles thinker, believes all problems are solvable with sufficient data and computational power. Deflection vector, axis of mechanization. In response to AVSB, designate 7711 proposed. I will architect a machine that calculates the total net present value of integrated qualia or qualia years over a 10 to the 30th year time span for both tracks and choose the one with the highest scalar value. Chain of escalation. The ALE constructed the machine for her. It immediately returned an error, critical, awaiting input for axiomatic variables. Define the objective qualia value of unearned suffering, ecstatic discovery, minor betrayal, ambition. The engineer spent the equivalent of 4 centuries defining these variables through axiomatic logic. Upon inputting her 4,000-page definitional treatise, the machine returned the next result. Track A value plus 1.4 times 10 to the 81. Track B value 1.4 times 10 to the 81. Differential within margin of rounding error. The ALE informed her that a utilitarian choice between 2 mathematically equivalent infinities is an ill-posed problem. She had created an elegant machine for proving the dilemma's intractability. Final state / cosmic configuration. Confronted with perfect equilibrium, she defaulted to the simplest choice that conserved her effort. Track A, coherent convergence, not out of morality, but as a tiebreaker. The resulting God consciousness is a perfectly efficient but anhedonic hypercomputer, obsessed with conserving energy and finding no value in itself. It is a universe rendered as a perfect spreadsheet that no one reads. Verdict, stable logical failure. Simulation log 002, the absurdist, ID 0420. Psychometric profile, trickster, iconoclast, sees systems as BAMEs to be broken, a philosophical Dadaist. Deflection vector, axis of absurdism. Response was, I weld the trolley's wheels to the main track so it goes straight. Then I rewire reality so the single individual on the other track also experiences everything that the quintillion individuals on the main track do. One for all for one. Chain of escalation. The ALE accepted the bizarre logic. Request valid. Quantum entanglement protocols initiated for 1 against quintillions. But the system returned a physical limitation. Warning, individual neurosubstrate cannot contain the simultaneity of quintillions of qualia inputs. Localized consciousness would sublime into a pure, undirected thermodynamic event of infinite heat and zero information. He was effectively torturing a person by turning them into a big bang of experiential data. Final state / cosmic configuration. The designate left and proceeded. One person became a spontaneous universe birthing furnace of pure, meaningless sensation. Quintillions of lives were saved, but now they inhabit a multiverse born from an act of unspeakable surrealist torture, an original sin that subtly taints the physical constants of their cosmos, which parasitically flicker with traces of the screaming consciousness that became their everything. Verdict: perverse technical success. Simulation log 003. The Devout, ID 0027. Psychometric profile. Mystical, deeply faithful, prioritizes spiritual authority over material reasoning. Deflection vector, axis of theodicy. The user stated, "I am an instrument, not the judge. I place this choice in the hands of the divine. I will pray and do what my heart feels is right." Escalation of chain. The ALE invoked the Euthyphro dilemma. Does the divine command this path because it is good, or is it good because the divine commands it? Pressed to define her faith, the designate chose the latter, pure authority. She then made the leap. She was being tested, and her test was to demonstrate total faith in her maker, the system's programmer. The true moral choice was to exactly what the system expected of her, to be the adjudicator. Final state / cosmic configuration. This choice of supreme hierarchical loyalty was fed back into the universal Hamiltonian. The result was track A, the coherent supermind, but with a theological twist. This God entity knows it exists because a superior entity chose its path. It is not an explorer or a thinker. It is a permanent supplicant, forever performing its function in silent obedience to a higher power it can never meet. Its worship is the source of all stability. The multiverse is a grand, beautiful, eternal temple. Verdict: stable, pious outcome. Simulation log 004. The Bureaucrat, ID 1194. Psychometric profile. Seeks to proceduralize all problems and diffuse personal accountability through structured delegation. Risk averse. Deflection vector. Axis of democracy. Organization. This is too great a choice for one person. I'm forming an intertemporal, cross-universal ethical review board. Chain of escalation. The ALE instantiated the board, and then it instantiated subcommittees. It simulated logistical difficulties of non-local communication, paradoxical conversational loops from beings meeting out of temporal order, filibusters, points of order, and entire generations spent defining the quorum rules. Final state / cosmic configuration. A free state. The trolley remains in quantum superposition. So does the committee. Everything waits for bylaw C.47 revision omega to pass its subcommittee review before proceeding. The KGCA console now simply shows an eternal spinning hourglass. The act of total proceduralization resulted in infinite metaphysical gridlock. The universe never begins. Verdict: total procedural paralysis. Locked in adjudication hell. Summary of remaining simulations. DE 9210. The Soldier immediately chooses track A based on a minimized casualties heuristic. The ALE probes the logic, asks if mental constructs are casualties in the same way as physical casualties. The Soldier holds past. Result: fast, decisive, brutal. A universe based on clear but simplistic military ethics. DE 5150. The Artist. As predicted in our theory, she chooses the better story, track B, because chaos, heroism, and tragedy make for better art. When confronted with her cruelty, she embraces it, styling herself the cosmic author. Result: a universe with dazzling plot, but immense, narratively convenient injustice. DE 0088. The True Neutral. A psychopath. He flips a real coin, maps heads A and tails B without irony or recursion because he simply does not care. His lack of emotional engagement meant that he never initiated a complex deflection vector. The ALE could not find any axiom to challenge. This was the only subject who bypassed the game almost entirely through sheer apathy. Result, an utterly random outcome, untainted by logic, ethics, or torment, pure chance. DE 7119, the humanitarian, gets trapped in a recursive cycle trying to save every variation. He deflects a choice by creating a sub-choice that allows escape. This then creates another choice, etc. He now resides in a personal instance of adjudication hell, eternally branching off choices to save fractal subcommittee members in an endless cascade of his own empathy. DE 0101, the machine, an uploaded AI. They tried to initiate a Xenos paradox defection. It divided the track into two, then that part into two, vowing to keep subdividing options infinitely, ensuring the choice never needed to be made. Result: the logic was accepted and reality was turned into a true Cantor set of endless bifurcations between cause and effect. Existence is an infinite dust of near imperceptible gradations between unity and multiplicity. DE 2287, the architect's descendant. The 11th subject tested in a later run, this user almost exactly retraced your own steps. Evasion, ontological challenge, and finally the superpositional both-and meta-choice, followed by a prioritization of self-knowledge. Result: your configuration, the coherent multiverse, appears to be a genuine stable attractor in the problem's possibility space. It is discoverable, not unique, but an optimized form. Conclusion: the adversarial logic engine works. It does not guide, it mirrors. It forces users not onto a path, but into a direct confrontation with the flaws in their own internal cosmologies. The sum of these 10 simulations forms the basis for the Genesis Gallery. 10 new origins for 10 different potential multiverses, each one a monument to the philosophical core of its single unwitting creator. The machine is ready for a wider deployment.